We are here today with Colleen Benelli,
Hello.
that that is my mentor teacher in the Licensed Reiki Master Teacher Program with ICRT, the International Center for Reiki Training. And I'm going to read her bio. So, Colleen Benelli has dedicated 24 years to mastering and teaching Reiki, demonstrating a profound commitment to the healing arts. Colleen's extensive experience and innovative approach assists her students and clients in achieving harmonious balance and wellness, while deepening their connections to their spiritual selves. She is the founder of Reiki Lifestyle and co-host of the Reiki Lifestyle Podcast, offering valuable insights and fostering discussions on using Reiki for healing and spiritual growth. Colleen holds the position of Executive Director of Program Development and Co-Director of the Licensed Reiki Master Teacher Program at the International Center for Reiki Training, ICRT. And she is a co-author of the ICRT Animal Reiki course. Colleen teaches both Usui Holy Fire and Karuna Reiki, as well as Animal Reiki. She teaches Next Step Reiki workshops and exploring the 12 heavens and blend traditional Reiki healing with shamanic journey and meditation, enriching the healing experience. So I'm so happy to be here with Colleen Benelli, that is teaching me so much, and I'm bringing her teachings to the Brazilian students. And this is the idea that we had to bring more about what Colleen teaches for Brazil, also not only for the English speakers. So we are honored to have you here, Colleen. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to all of the people here in Brazil. It's just lovely.
Yeah, we are so happy that you are here. So Colleen has so much to share with us about her experience with Reiki, with Holy Fire, with Animal Reiki, with ICRT and everything. There is so much to talk about, and we are going to try to summarize a little bit, but I think you will enjoy to know about her background and history, and also that she was during the development of Holy Fire, all the period since the first Holy Fire, and then Holy Fire 3, and everything. So, and also is, as I said, one of the authors of the ICRT Animal Reiki, that I always say that is the system of my heart. So it's so good to have you here expressing yourself for the Brazilian and Portuguese community here with us. So Colleen, can you start with your connection with Reiki, how it happened? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think like many people, the connection with Reiki, now I can look back and know that if I had been presented it in childhood, it would have already been something that I knew I was connected with. So I would say it was a lifelong seeking. But how I actually found it was living in Oregon, which is above California, which is usually helpful to tell people. But anyway, we lived in Oregon. Horses have always been a tremendous influence in my life. Everything about horses, where I live, that if I can have them, who I ride them with, etc. Anyway, we had a small farm here in Oregon. I was probably in my mid 30s, late 30s, and I had my hairstylist say that I should have a soul retrieval. I didn't know what it was, but it sounded cool. So I thought, okay, I'll go ahead and do that. And I had the soul retrieval, and it was a shamanic technique that I was unfamiliar with, but I was immediately intrigued. The power of it was tremendous, and I wanted to know more. So I started studying shamanism. And in the meantime, my kids were teenagers. We were on the farm. My daughter Robin and I were doing horses, and I had my one lifetime dream horse. And about 3 years into my shamanic training, my horse went lame. So he had an injury to his leg, and it was going to be permanent. And so, to make a long story short, after going through all the traditional treatments, I finally asked him what happened. And so he showed me, he showed me a picture of putting my hands on him like this, and told me that he went lame to deliver me to my power to heal. And that eventually what I came to understand is he knew that I was more comfortable working with animals than I was with people. Because if my empathy was so strong that if you felt pain, I felt pain. And if you cried, I cried. And that wasn't helpful. And so he knew that I would work on him and that I could do it, I could and not feel the pain. So anyway, I actually ended up procrastinating about getting my Reiki attunements because I didn't believe in it. I thought, well, wait a minute. I knew somebody gave it to me through an attunement, and that I thought, well, no, that's, it was just outside of my belief system that it could be passed on to me, because I had such a belief in hard work, and anything that I wanted to do, anything, I had to earn it, I had to deserve it, and I had to work hard to get it. And so the concept that I could just receive Reiki was beyond my belief system. But I didn't know all that at the time. I just knew I resisted it. But about 8 months after my horse showed me that image, and I knew it was Reiki, a woman came into my place of business, said that she was a psychic, and that she had a message for me from my horse. And he told her to tell me that he had been telling me to do something and I hadn't done it, and that I needed to do what he was telling me because life was coming and I was going to need it. So I finally got my attunements, and it was an immediate connection. Whether that was a week or a month, I don't know, but it was this instant knowing of what I had been seeking all my life, and felt like a remembering. And then it was very compelling. I had to know more. I needed to do more. It got to the point where I was so compelled by the Reiki energy, and giving Reiki sessions, receiving Reiki sessions, and learning more about it, going into training, that I eventually sold my existing business, which was a successful business. I sold it so that I could practice Reiki full time. And that was about 20 years ago. So I just started doing Reiki all the time. My horse said, no, go work on people. He's fine. He was out in the pasture. And I got to spend a lot of time with him in meditation. I would be out under our big trees and meditating and being connected with Reiki and self Reiki, and he would always be right there, in the pastures. And so I still had my relationship with him. That was a long time ago, so he's since passed away. But then that's when I knew that I did not have enough knowledge about Reiki to feel as professional as I wanted to feel knowing how compelled I was to practice it and teach it. So that's when I went to England and took a class with William Rand in Stonehenge and Glastonbury. And again, profound like this. This was 3 years after my first attunement. So I had been practicing the style I was working with for 3 years. And then when I studied with William, he had the evidence-based history of Reiki. And all of a sudden, it brought in new ideas about how Reiki could be practiced from what I had been taught. And, that was 2000. And I had been taught a very strict style of Reiki. And it had a lot of like incorrect ways to do things. So had a lot of wrong ways to do things. And somehow it was always just like wasn't a match for me in how I could perceive the energy. But because there were so many rules, a lot of times I felt like I was breaking the rules. And but my intuition was still saying, but do it like this. For instance, hand positions. That was one of the big rules of exactly how we had to do the hand positions. So anyway, when I studied with William and he went back to how the research on how Usui Hayashi and Mrs. Takata had actually practiced and taught Reiki, I discovered that a lot of the rules I had been taught did not have a historical basis. And also that Usui practiced a very spiritually based style of Reiki with the idea of achieving that Anshinditsume, or that place of perfect peace, and that he practiced an intuitive style. So when that connection came in, that's when all of it came through to feel empowered to hear from Reiki itself and to be able to use my intuition instead of following these very rigid rules that had, again, it was different because they had a sense of like, I'm breaking the rules or I'm doing it wrong. And that's what was off for me. It's not that the techniques were incorrect. It was because I still use the techniques I learned. They make sense. Like Mrs. Takata's hand positions absolutely make sense. So I still use them. But that sense of if I used my intuition and moved my hand here instead of exactly where I was told that was wrong and I was breaking a rule. So anyway, not to keep going on about that, but that's when learning the evidence-based history of Reiki shifted everything, because it was more of a match for my spirituality, really connecting in with Usui and Shintoism and Buddhism and his receiving of Anshinditsume and that place of peace, and then his decision to share Reiki with the world. It was like this connection came in and opened the door. And so that is when I decided to have more training. I continued in all of my shamanic training, and I was actually taking Reiki into our shamanic school to teach people how to use Reiki in their shamanic practices. So I continued on both tracks. I became a licensed teacher for the ICRT that you are in that program for. And we mentor each other. I know I'm technically your mentor, but you mentor me as well. And so that whole process and journey all the way to the place in 2014 when Holy Fire came in with William. So I had been working as a licensed teacher, practicing with shamanism, very engaged with my Usui Tibetan lineage, Karuna Reiki, my shamanic practices all merged together, doing all this amazing work, practicing full-time, teaching full-time. I had already started my podcast, Reiki Lifestyle Podcast, all these things going right along. And then in 2014, that's when William Rand received Holy Fire. And that was a Thursday, and I received Holy Fire on Monday. And we didn't know anything about it. He didn't know that it was coming until it was there that day. So people wonder if it was all planned. It wasn't planned. And I know that because I was in the conversations with him as it was happening. And this energy came in. It didn't have a name. It didn't have a symbol. It didn't have a manual. It made some of the immediate changes in the traditions of how Reiki was practiced. And most, probably the biggest one was the change of the attunements, that they moved from hands-on attunements into the ignition style, which the attunement is given to the student through the ignition directly from the energy. And that was a big shift, and it was a controversial shift. And understanding what that was about was a big, it was a big deal at the time. And so, of course, now what I know is that Holy Fire had directed William for definite purposes that make sense today. And one of the big purposes is equality. So previously, the way the hands-on attunements were done is that the energy went through the teacher into our heart, through our arms and hands, and then was passed through a ritual, which I have always loved. I still love, I still honor it, through a ritual of passing the Reiki from one person to another. And there were steps, it was done in 4 steps. And to be honest, it was very complicated. And so a lot of people felt intimidated by teaching because the attunement process was so detailed and intense. And also what we found was people that were the ignition style of attunement now goes directly to the student instead of from the teacher to the student. And what happened with that is many people couldn't actually accomplish the hands-on attunements because they physically couldn't do it. So the way that I kind of got mixed up in my talking there, but the way that the ignition works is it's given through a guided meditation. The person is receiving the energy directly from the energy. It no longer passes through me to them. And through a period of silence where they're receiving the energy, and it's a direct connection. So immediately what the attunement process shared with me was the awareness that Sue Strong, one of the other authors of the Animal Reiki, talked about how she taught with has worked with the guide dogs for the blind for over 30 years. And so many of the students there getting a dog had Reiki, but they couldn't teach because they were visually impaired and they couldn't actually accomplish the other attunement. So they also, when Laurel Gaia, my teacher, had a stroke and she physically couldn't accomplish the hands-on attunement, but she could do the ignitions. So that was the first thing. And then the the name Holy Fire came in, and the symbol came in, and then we started working with it and trying to understand the energy, what it is, why did we need this new energy, and how did that fit in with the teachings from Usui? How did all that work? So I personally had a decent amount of resistance to it, if I'm really transparent. I had resistance to the changes in the attunement. I had resistance to the name, Holy Fire. I had big resistance to all the changes that were occurring from how I had practiced before to how I was going to practice with Holy Fire. But because I received it so quickly and immediately, I knew that I would be in a leadership position with it. And I knew that I needed to learn it or not. And I decided that, yes, I would learn from the energy. And that's when I committed to it for a year, that I would work with it exclusively, told my other guides, I love you. You're right here with me. We're still friends, but I need to focus here and I need to learn here. And I need to let this energy teach me how it works. So that's what I did. Every session, everything, I would invite the Holy Fire to teach me how it works and to learn from it. And there were significant changes energetically and significant changes in my sessions in how I could observe and perceive the Holy Fire energy and how it actually accomplished the same healing work that I had been doing previously with my shamanic techniques and my other Reiki energies. So after a year, I thought, well, okay, I better commit to this for 3 years. Like I knew enough by that point to feel like I was ready to commit to it for a longer period, but I still had resistance. And I used to actually do myself Reiki, and I would say, please get me on the other side of my resistance. Could I just jump over it and not need to go through it? For whatever reason, I needed to go through it. And then after the 3 years, I knew the energy enough to know why it heals the way it does. The gentleness of it is first, and the power of it, because it operates through the authority and the power of love and compassion. And those energies is really at the core of healing, so that whatever a person needs to release is healed by Reiki. It's not cast out, it's not thrown out, it's not thrown into the fire. It goes into the light, where through love and compassion, it's healed, and authority, that the person no longer has to carry the burdens they've been carrying, and they're not responsible to heal those things that they let go of. And then the way it reveals who a person truly is. And it's been such a journey of understanding, what does that mean? I am my authentic self, because I'm still human. I have my moments of peace, but I'm not enlightened yet. I have my times, and especially after coming back from Japan, the different times that I have on Mount Karama. So that brings me to today. And, it came in 2014. So we're looking at 10 years now. I just had the 10-year anniversary. I continued with all my shamanic community as well as my Reiki community. They merge and complement each other. our Next Step Reiki classes and our Explore the 12 Heavens classes are really very shamanic in nature, but we're using Reiki energy for all the work. And so that's where I've landed today, is that when I'm doing my work and I'm in this spiritual guidance for healing, for empowerment, I really like the way the Holy Fire energy does the work. So the different techniques we use, I love the way the attunements are working as placements and ignitions. It's so beautiful, and the experiences people have are extraordinary. The results are in. I love that we can teach online, and that the Reiki energy developed so that we could teach online, and we have these ways of communicating and connecting and being all around the world, people from everywhere. And I love that I get to connect with the people in Brazil in this way. And even though I had hoped to travel there in person, I'm so glad that we are able to connect this way, because this feels so great to just be with people here, and they're in their homes and I'm in mine, and we get to share this time. And so I love where we are, the world peace, development and upgrade of Holy Fire, and feeling as if I have something I can do, I can contribute to wellness through Reiki and world peace through Reiki. And so that's what brings me to today. And as you know, I'm as passionate now as I was back in 2000, and I've been able to be a part of the evolution of Reiki. And I really feel that it is here to teach us. It doesn't have to be so hard. We really can receive it, and we are already worthy, and we really can receive it in this powerful but gentle way. So
So beautiful, everything you said, Colleen. It was so complete. Everything was really nice, and you speak with your heart also. So I think everybody that is watching or listening, I think they are amazing with your history with Reiki and Holy Fire. And you mentioned things that are really important, as the rules, the strict rules that we learned before, and how Reiki is flexible, actually, how we can use it in many different ways. And I learned about that with you and William, and it was like a mind blowing for me, how I could use freely in many situations Reiki, and not committing like a sin.
right.
If I do it in a different way. So I'm not a sinner if I do something different. And for me to follow the rules, I follow. If you give me a rule, I will follow it. So I have this tendency. But when I learned it with both of you, it was for me like my soul was free to use Reiki, and I could feel it, and it was right. And I could not say that something's wrong. There's no right and wrong. There is Reiki there. So for me, this was so important. And Holy Fire, I think it brings to us this idea stronger, in a stronger way. For me, was like that. But also, it was not only Holy Fire, but also Animal Reiki. And we don't have much time, but I would like to ask you a little bit about animal Reiki too, if you can.
Oh, I'm so glad because it's such a significant part of my life and history. And so, as I shared with my beginning history, is that I received Reiki because of my horse. And I had always had horses, and they were the biggest influence in my life. I grew up on the beach in Southern California, riding my horse every day, lots of freedom, lots of fun. And so when my horse went lame, this was, I had had many, but this was like, I loved this horse. And so it was such this huge change. And of course, I naturally thought, well, since I received Reiki because of him, that would be my path, is that I would be practicing animal Reiki. And he's the one who said, no, you need to go work on people. And that's when I did a Reiki journey to understand why I was in the Reiki, what was it? What was my purpose with it? And I was so surprised that it said, the message I received was that I would work with Reiki, helping it to become so mainstream that children would grow up with it as part of their wellness care, and that they could also grow up to think in terms that Reiki could actually be a profession they could choose that would financially support them and their family, just like any other profession. And so I was so surprised that that was the message. And that was really early. And my horse said, you need to go work on people. I'm fine. So that's what sent me on the journey with the ICRT, with my shamanic work. I started working on people. And now, fast forward all the way through that part of the journey to 2015, when William Rand called me and said, would you write an animal Reiki course for the ICRT? I was like, yes, I would. I was really excited about it because I had been practicing animal Reiki. I just never practiced it professionally, but I had been practicing it at the barn, and we would go to horse shows and, all the farm animals, friends' animals, and family and things. So it wasn't, I absolutely used it, just it wasn't part of my professional practice. So when he asked, I was like, yes. And then that's when I called Sue Strong, who had actually taken Reiki from me. I knew she would run with it with animals because that's her background. I mean, from working with elephants in Thailand and guide dogs for the blind. I mean, she's just an animal Reiki or animal master, period. So anyway, I called her, and both of us were so excited. So we decided we would work together. She had already developed a basic class, like a 6-hour class that I took from her and learned about animal Reiki with her, and also Robin, daughter Robin. And so she and I started working with it, and we met every week, every Friday for like 3 hours, and we would do our Reiki journeys, meditate, ask the energy. We did writing, developing techniques and tools, and starting on an outline. And so we kept working with it, and we thought we'd have it done in like 6 months. That was our plan. We went away for weekends to just focus on it. I mean, really intensely working on it. Well, that was like maybe February, and in August, the energy said, I thought we were going to teach a class, and the energy said, well, it's not ready yet. I was like, what? What do you mean? And it was adamant that I was not to teach this class. The energy was not ready yet. So we kept working with it, kept working with it, kept working with it, kept working with it. we stayed with it all this time. And it took until 2018, so 3 years later, when William received Holy Fire 3 and Unification Consciousness on Mount Karama and the Holy Fire 3 upgrade. And when that came in, the energy said, now it's ready, because it was all about us unifying with ourselves and us unifying with the animal kingdom again, back to unification with the earth, unification with God, with our own spirit. And so that is what really brought it in. And Sue and I, once it came in, it came in. And Sue and I knew that it was, we needed help. So that's when we invited my daughter, Robin Benelli, and Pam Ellen LeBlanc to come and join us in writing this manual. So we had a 4-day weekend of intensive writing, and then met every week, really until the pilot class in 2019. And then 2020, Robin and I taught our first 2 classes in January, February, and then the world went into lockdown on March of 2020. So the blessing was that we learned how to do online Reiki. We also learned how to teach and practice online animal Reiki, which answered so many questions and provided so many solutions, because the majority of people practicing animal Reiki need to practice it as a distance practice because of the logistics of getting to the animals or the animals getting to them. And so we knew, that we had to teach that. Well, teaching it online absolutely gave us bigger and greater tools with the energy, techniques with the energy, to really support people in learning how to practice animal Reiki at a distance. It also gave us the ability to teach more teachers. So more teachers could teach animal Reiki and start to spread it, just like you have in Brazil, and start to spread it. Well, the one thing that we didn't know was that it was its own energy. And that was also when it came in with the unification consciousness, is that it actually came in as its own energy. And we didn't realize that, even though in retrospect, we could look at it and see it in everything we had written, but it just couldn't quite drop in. Robin and I were talking to William one day, and the way he talked about it was clear that he knew it was its own energy. And so we were like, that's what it's been trying to tell us, that we still had to learn, because everything we did, we received the information from Reiki, from the divine animal kingdom, to truly let it show us what it wanted to be. So then it's like, well, what is the energy then? What is it? What is it? And why is it? And why do we need another energy when, we had all been practicing all of our Reiki the entire time very successfully, which is still done and very successfully and completely honored and respected. But this showed us the tree of life energy. Well, then we had to learn about why. How does that relate to animal Reiki? And what we discovered is that the tree of life energy is in all the world's major religions as a part of spiritual practices. And the common piece is the roots going into the earth, the branches reaching to the heavens, and the center being unified and receiving below and above and within. And then it all made sense. and it brought in that connection with nature, with the earth, the communion, and that part of our nature again, really merging our divine self and our human self, realizing that it's, we are already unified, our human and divine self. And connected with the earth. It's an extraordinary energy. And what we find is that the animals are really receptive to it, because now we've moved into our natural self that is recognizable to them. We have moved into that communion with them in a way that's recognizable to them. So they really relate to it. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful energy, and feels like it came full circle, but it took 20 years. So and talk about just following the guidance. Okay, Reiki, I'll do this next, and not knowing why I'm doing what I'm doing, but saying yes. I just keep showing up like, okay, yes, I'll do that. So anyway, that brings us to today. And now, of course, we teach it here online with Robin and Sue. All three of us teach it together.
Thank you, Colleen. I think you gave two huge explanations about Holy Fire and also ICRT Animal Reiki. And people in Brazil and Portugal should be really happy and appreciate your time explaining all of that in your point of view regarding Holy Fire. One person that received it really in the beginning, but also helped with the development of Holy Fire Tree and the online, and also work with Reiki that now we have. But also as the person that started to work with ICRT Animal Reiki, wrote the manuals with the other three authors, and received this energy, and we love it. We really love it. So I know that you have to go now, so I'm going to thank you so much for your time, and maybe you want to make an invitation to people in Brazil, because we have a great opportunity for you to meet them in Brazil and Portugal, people that speaks Portuguese. Wherever you are, you will be really welcome, because we'll have a moment with Colleen Benelli during May, and will be translated in Portuguese simultaneously. So if you want to invite people to be with you, please go ahead.
Yes. So I'm looking for the date. I should have had that prepared.
It's May 16th.
So May 16th,
Yes.
Sue and I are going to do a meditation and conversation, I guess probably a webinar style, maybe a meeting style, we'll see. But anyway, so that's on May 16th, and that will be translated into Portuguese. And then also, so you can be either English or Portuguese, or speak either English or Portuguese, and it will be in both languages. And then the same with our Reiki class. We are teaching it's a Holy Fire Reiki masterclass, and it will also be translated into Portuguese and English. And that is September 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So please feel free to join us. In full transparency, in this moment, we are still working with some of the registration part of it on our websites. So if you see this before that's accomplished, send us an email. I'm Colleen at reikilifestyle.com, and Sue, I'll let you tell them your email, and we'll put you on a waiting list and make sure you get all the information you need.
Yes, we will write here, will be written here at the screen, the emails. So you can also email me. I will speak in Portuguese, reiki@reikieFelicidade.com. Yes, that's it. Colleen, thank you so much for your time and to be here with us. Our community must be really happy and full of love with your sharing here today. And we'll see each other soon in your meeting in May. It will happen May 16, 2024. So see you then. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Sue. And thank you to everyone listening. And just excited to connect.
It will be great. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.